Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And with this one, we've got 9.2 updates, some changes to tier set bonuses based on feedback, and a quick little PvP update to currently 9.1.5. So in this update, it does appear that they are still listening actively to the feedback that is being provided. And I'm going to be going over some of the changes that they are directly making right now. The PTR was supposed to come out today, but ended up getting delayed. I will be checking that out directly as well. So if you'd like to make sure that you're in the know and the now with everything World of Warcraft, or if there's anything that could potentially intrigue you in the future with regards to World of Warcraft, then make sure you hit that subscribe button because you will be updated in real time and it's absolutely free. And again, this channel is to be a resource to enhance your experience. So starting off with the changes to 9.1.5 is now that finally Triune Ward will have its effectiveness reduced in PvP. So mage shields are going to become a little bit less valuable. Potentially we see mages shifting away from this legendary entirely. So this has kind of been a change that has been requested for quite some time now in PvP, and it is finally coming through. And for warriors, your shattering throw will now no longer deal extra damage beyond the absorb shield when breaking large absorbs. So warlocks and mistweavers, you're not going to have to worry about canceling your life cocoon and canceling your dark pacts before you get one shot by a 100k shattering throw. Although it did provide a little bit of entertainment, I would imagine for the people that weren't the warlocks and mistweavers, you won't have to worry about that anymore. And these changes make a lot of sense. I think we're in line with what a lot of PvPers were expecting. So these are great changes that came into the game live for 9.1.5. But let's now jump into 9.2, some of the big news regarding tier set bonuses, because some of these set bonuses were pretty lackluster, not even just PvP specifically, but in the game entirely. So Restoration Shaman is the first one that jumped off the page here. And for Restoration Shaman, they're planning to take a look at the Restoration bonus and put it back into the workshop and change it up for a future build. This looked promising initially. We want it to encourage you to chain heal sometimes and be rewarded for doing so. But the current two-piece bonus is a little more passive than we think it could be. So seems like they're still going to try and make the set bonus around chain heal. And again, in the game as a whole, chain heal is a spell that's pretty much avoided outside of maybe some cheese builds in PvP for trying to dispel dots with chain heal crits through an honor talent. It's just not used very much. So they either are really just trying to get it so it is used, but I'm a bit worried because that spell is really awkward to use in PvP and very expensive mana-wise. And then in PvE, it seems like that's just not the way that it's built to work. So will it end up working out is still yet to be the case. There is raid testing happening pretty soon, I think, so we'll get to see what this ends up being in real time. But they say that many people have expressed dislike of the 4-piece bonus, so we're going to change that up more substantially. Thanks for the feedback and looking forward to seeing your thoughts on its coming iteration when we have more details. So they maybe want to make chain heal some sort of rotationally impactful spell that you use occasionally is what it seems like here. That probably means that you don't use it at all, I would say, unless it affects your damage output in PvE, because healers end up usually just being about doing damage. And then in PvP, I still don't see you getting torn away from using Riptide, dropping your honor talents to get the chain heal honor talent, and just running yourself out of mana to use this spell. Like, the set bonus would have to be absolutely bonkers in my mind for it to get chain heal into the rotation almost in the game at all. I don't know if that means that maybe in the future they need to look at how Shaman is working, but I would have much rather seen this set bonus shifted into something else. I'll have to hold, too much of a negative opinion of it because it says that they'll still take into account thoughts on a future iteration. So hopefully when that comes out, it'll be exciting because the Restoration Shaman was disappointing pretty much for the game entirely. Now moving forward, one that I had to do a little bit of digging to find is the Feral Druid. So one of the points of feedback for the Feral Druid set bonus was that it was going to be when Berserk ends, you would do this massive AoE bleed. But now it's going to be when you enter it. So you'll have control of that on-demand AoE damage, which could make you more competitive in Mythic Plus environments, right? In PvE, allowing you to get that big burst AoE on a big mob pull, rather than awkwardly timing it and hoping the mobs that are alive are by the end of it. In PvP, this also gives you a lot more control over when you want to go for this bleed. But whether or not it started at the beginning or the end, you will want to take into account that this thing will probably break crowd control. So if you're a Feral Druid running in, when you're popping that, you got to make sure you've got the target isolated, but this thing could end up doing a lot of damage. Maybe it puts Feral on the board again. We'll have to see how much damage it actually does, but I think that this was a great change for the Feral Druid set bonus, improvements in quality of life in the game as a whole, and made a lot of sense, and is going to work out a lot better for the Feral Druids. The Feral Druids just keep getting better in PvP, PvE. Hopefully this helps you kind of get on the map. Now looking at Restoration Druid, we are going to be looking at specifically that they're actually just completely getting rid of the 2-set and the 4-set bonus, which had to do with your Swiftmend, which actually wasn't going to be too bad in PvP. I mean, Swiftmend is actually a very powerful heal in PvP, so those set bonuses could have still been useful there, but in PvE, Swiftmend is kind of like the chain heal. It's just an inefficient output with the way that the healers are made at the moment, and is not that exciting, so it looks like they're going to completely change it. Where my concern comes in as a PvP player is that if they focus on some sort of AoE heal, which is generally going to be more powerful, like Efflorescence, because it's just on the ground healing and while you're doing other things, that it might be put into Wild Growth, or it might be put into Efflorescence, when those are, again, in PvP, very expensive heals. So if the bonus to it needs to be absolutely stellar to justify running out of mana for this effect, the same way that the chain heal problem is for Restoration Shaman. So in a way, in PvP at least, you may be losing out as a Resto Druid, but in PvE, it seems like they're pretty set on trying to make this a bit better for you competitively, whether it's rating or Mythic Plus, so you'll be a bonus there, but I want to wait and see what spell do they try and target with the set bonuses. Is it a spell that's used in PvP or not? And then the final change that they've updated so far is for Shadow Priest, and specifically they're going to be changing the shadow bonuses for the 2-set. They're going to undergo changes, and the 2-set bonus will move its focus to Devouring Plague as the only spender in the Shadow Priest rotation. And with the abundance of Insanity in the Shadow Kit, it seems like a good hook to pivot to. This could, in PvP, give you great kind of setup burst damage if it's going to just be adding into that spending situation. And then also now the shadow that is summoned from your 4-set will AoE as well as single target, which is going to be good in PvE, for being able to AoE down trash pulls, but in PvP, this may actually make it so it's just going to break a lot of crowd control, because if this little shadow is following your target, and if it happens to shift from single target to AoE based on 2 targets next to it or 1 target next to it, you might accidentally end up breaking a sheep or something with this. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a win for PvE. You're going to be getting more damage there. It's slight win in PvP where you'll get more control of your burst, but now your burst will also AoE. And there's a lot of set bonuses like this that are adding AoE to these types of spells that you're going to need to be aware of when it comes to PvP specifically. So I am glad that they are looking at these set bonuses. It doesn't so far seem like these are directly oriented towards PvP, right? These changes. And with the raid testing coming first before we see things like the solo queue brawl testing and stuff like that, I think that makes sense. I'm just hoping that PvP doesn't end up being a complete afterthought. There are a couple of set bonuses still that I think are very lackluster in the game as a whole, let alone even just PvP. Things like the Mistweaver set bonus. I don't think Mistweavers are really asking for more throughput. Their throughput is already through the roof, and their set bonus was only going to add to that. I think for a lot of players, they'd rather be oriented towards giving them some type of damage reduction. In PvP, it was very lackluster because it's on Essence font, which is never used. So it's more throughput that the Mistweavers really doesn't want, whether or not it's in PvE or PvP, and it's on a spell that's never used in PvP. So I would really like to see the Mistweaver one looked at. And I've seen critiques towards the Frost Mage one as well, because Comet Storm just doesn't do damage at the moment. And the Frost Mage set bonus has all to do with Comet Storm. So I'm not sure if they'll end up going back and maybe buffing Comet Storm so that the set bonuses are then more impactful as a result of that, and maybe the talents will open up more in that as well. But the Mistweaver one and the Frost Mage one were ones that I was really hoping that they would start to look at with a little bit more focused intent, because they stood out as just not being that great in the game as a whole, let alone PvP on its own. But again, I'm glad that they are looking at this. I'm hoping that throughout the raid testing, they'll continue to, because it seems like they will, with the way that they've worded all of this and with the recent PvP changes that we've got. So hopefully we can still just keep pumping out the feedback towards the game and try and get it tweaked around a little bit. And I think that 9.2 is going to be absolutely chaotic. with some of the changes that are already going in. Like, it could be a completely different game. So it might be worth preparing for, just to come in and see what happens. Because versatility, trinket bonuses are going to completely revamp, I think, the game. The set bonuses could completely revamp the game for a lot of specs. So it could be a really chaotic time. WoW can be really fun as well as frustrating in those moments of time. But I like that they're going to be at least mixing it up. Of course, again, moving in the future, I would like to see PvP set bonuses. So that those set bonuses can be tailored directly to the PvP experience, and even things like dungeon set bonuses. So then the dungeons can be tuned towards specs to assist them that are failing in the dungeons, as opposed to raids, because maybe a spec's doing really well in raid but not in dungeons. This will then allow them to amplify them there, and then having a set bonus that would be tailored towards the raid to enhance the experience of the classes in the raid would be my goal. But of course, that's just my opinion. Regardless, what do you think? Do you think these changes are going to be enough? Do you think they're going in the right direction? Moving forward, let me know in the comments down below. If you'd like to follow me live, I'm streaming on twitch.tv/Supatease every day at 11 a.m. PST, and I'm doing evening streams with high-rated 3v3 PvP, and I'm going to continue pumping out these news, patch notes, and updates as they become available. So if you want to stay in the know and the now, make sure you're subscribed. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.